Hi, and welcome to the Saxophone Academy. I'm Dr. Wally Wallace, and if you're interested in saxophone masterclasses and product reviews, please do subscribe and be sure to hit the like button. It's just the nice thing to do. So today we're continuing in lesson 2 of our ongoing series of how to improvise over the blues changes, how to play the blues on saxophone. Now in part 1, we simply covered the chord tones, a basic understanding of the terminology of scale degrees and chord tones and how to spell that first chord dealing with this G blues, the G7 chord. And as we discovered last week, with only those chord tones, it's not enough notes to play with, it gets boring fast. So we're going to expand upon that greatly today and start to mix in the diatonic scale and a little bit of chromatic alteration. Now diatonic just means native to the key area without chromatic alterations. So we're going to be diving in doing a lot of exercises today dealing with the diatonic mode, the Mixolydian mode, which fits over that chord, the G7 chord. Now eventually in the upcoming lessons we're going to be adding more and more alterations and colorations to this diatonic way of playing, but it's great to have a good foundation of playing diatonically, number one, so the key area is firmly in our ears, and then as we slowly and systematically start to add in more colorations, passing tones, surround tones, these blues notes, we hear them more clearly because we hear the context that they're creating, the difference that they're creating to the diatonic notes. And this is my preferred method of teaching and even practicing jazz myself, is sequential and additive, where we're taking a basic concept and slowly adding on top of it. If we start with just a Charlie Parker lick over the blues, we may conceptually understand what some of these notes are doing, but I don't think most of us can hear what these chromatic alterations are doing when they're all jumbled up together. So we're going to separate them one by one and start to hear their function, hear what they do to that chord and how they differ from the diatonic language. So this week's lesson is going to be an expansion of what we did last week with the chord tones. We're going to be adding in the scale motion as well. In this case, the diatonic is going to be the G Mixolydian mode. And at the end of the lesson, we're going to add our first chromatic alteration to spice things up a little bit. So let's talk about a couple of concepts that I want you to be aware of that we're working into these exercises. Concept number 1, altering leap and stepwise motion, mixing up arpeggios and scales, not just thinking about one or the other. We're going to practice steps and leaps because if we take any piece of standard jazz language, it's a combination of arpeggios, scales with passing tones, more arpeggios, more scales with passing tones. It's a combination. That's how melodies are made, obviously. Now, this may be somewhat intuitive and basic knowledge, but we want to make sure we're practicing that way in our exercises, not just doing arpeggios, not just doing scales, but combine them like chocolate and peanut butter or two other great things that go together. We're going to practice more in the way that we perform. Concept number 2, we're going to alternate descending and ascending motion. We get in the habit, myself included at times, of practicing scales going up, practice arpeggios going up, maybe up and down. But again, if we look at jazz lines, it's a constant contrast of ascending and descending motion, making interesting melodic lines. So these diatonic exercises and eventually our chromatic exercises, we're going to practice scale up, arpeggio down, scale up, in many combinations. We're going to get used to alternating ascending and descending motion. This week, we're going to be doing it rather gradually with 2 bars of a motion at a time. And then in the succeeding weeks, we're going to be doing faster and faster turnarounds between ascending and descending motion, as we're going to be doing when we play swing and bebop language over the blues progression. Concept number 3, get away from always playing or starting on the root. These exercises, we're going to start on each of the different scale degrees with arpeggiated motion and scale motion. And here's the problem this is trying to fix. We've learned since 6th grade band class, a lot of us, that when we see a G, we play a G. Same thing with chord changes. We look at the blues and we see that first chord, G7, and we're in the key area of G major. We'll talk about it in a second. And when we see the G7 chord, our brain wants to play G. We see the G. We want to play the G. But if we always start on G, it's going to get old fast. So we practice starting on different scale degrees, creating more contrast and different motions in our improvisation. So we're going to train as we hope to perform. Concept number 4, we're going to add chromatic passing tones alterations in the blues note slowly and sequentially. We're going to add them one at a time so our ear gets used to the sound of them, and that's going to give us a better chance of using them when we improvise. Now this week we're going to add in the leading tone or F sharp. Add in the leading tone or F sharp. Now, although the G7 chord implies a flat seventh, an F natural, the F sharp is the leading tone and important to the key of G major. Now remember, although this chord is a G7 that starts the G blues, it's not in the key of G dominant, it's in the key of G major. We're studying the major blues right now. So although we won't sit on that F sharp for too long, we're going to use it in a way that surrounds notes, leads notes, colors the key, and you're going to hear this all the time in great swing and bebop era players. So we're going to add this note and you're going to hear how it creates some interesting pull to that home note of G. Concept number 5, we're going to practice in 4-bar phrases. And here's why. One of the biggest problems we face as improvisers is getting lost in the chord changes. And even if we know where the next chord is and coming up, it's hard to relax into a chord or a key signature or a key area knowing that there's this new key area or this new chord coming up. Because although we're playing G7 for a while, we got 4 comfortable bars, most of us are probably thinking, here comes that C7. It's coming up any second now. Is it here yet? Is this it? Is it now? Am I late? Where's that C7? And we can't relax and make melodies in the area of that G7, that G home bass. Like anytime we're playing jazz standards, if we're worrying about when the next chord's coming along, it's hard to relax and make melodies in the current key area. So we're going to practice playing in 4-bar phrases so we start to feel it and hear it and get used to it. So then we can just think about making a 4-bar phrase and then intuitively know where the next chord is going to happen. So let's get you playing some exercises that apply these principles. I'm going to be demonstrating on alto this week. We'll mix in some tenor later in the future episodes. But this week we're going to get a good diatonic workout, add in a little bit of chromatic alteration with that F sharp, and some rhythmic variation along the way.